Uber. We must just fund these guys. These guys must work for us. But when you look at it really, now you sit down, you can see with actually the actual owners is SA Taxi.
Jeez.
The SA Taxi owns the SA Taxi industry.
And they gave themselves a nice name because they had a vision.
They had a vision that we are SA Taxi. And they're actually the SA Taxi.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go to, out of 10 guys, 9 are funded by SA Taxi. And they're all working for SA Taxi.
Yeah.
And if you don't pay, they come and they take it. Can you imagine somebody who tatela abantu bama taxi imoto ukuthi kumele abe neinkabi ezingakanani?
Njoba thina saba taxi industry people.
So you see,
what has been fascinating for me with SA Taxi, the transaction capital guys, some of them came from finance backgrounds, African Bank, etc. Of which African Bank itself had a lot of Jewish people on the board, etc. When they took it over from or Dr. Sam Mutswenya and the guys that were involved from Onef Kok. They built SA Taxi, and number one, they came with the finance, which for a lot of people that don't know, because there's this line that says the new form of slavery is debt.
Yes.
Because with debt, I don't need to chain you. No. I don't need to whip you.
Voluntarily.
I charge you interest and you wake up on your own and you stress and you go work hard for me to pay interest. So they came in with the finance. Number two, they realized, let's also give these people insurance. Let's also service their taxis. And what was fascinating a few years ago is for the first time, we now have data on the taxi industry that the associations couldn't give us.
Yes.
How many taxis are in the industry? How much money do they make? What are the profit margins? How many people do they move? Because I know Jewish people are normally obsessed in business. They eat, sleep, shit, breathe. So they want to know the numbers. How much are we making? How much are they making? What are the profit margins? And they've collected this data we've never had before. And they can now send it out and even help the associations in planning. But this is how you guys move. Why don't you do it like this? That's been fascinating for me.
And you know, data is money.
Data is money.
The reason we had all this halabaloo of Huawei and everything in the US, data is money.
Yeah.
And you know, we're talking about the taxi industry. In property, the same thing is happening right under our nose.
What do you mean?
There's a company that goes to Ekasi. It's funded by one of the big four banks. They go to Ekasi, they come to you, they look at your house, and they say, okay, it's a koneni. They go and get a plan, and they submit the plan for you. The municipality approves the plan for you, and they come and they build for you room, and then they take their collection for a period of 5 years. You pay them, and then you can own that thing going forward.
Jeez. Yazi, already in my head, because we speak about business a lot. Yeah. Already in my head, I'm thinking, running property is tough. You and I both know.
It is.
It's very difficult.
Yes.
Number one, they don't need to own the assets. It's your asset. It's your house.
Asset. It's your house.
Number two, because of economies of scale, they're going to go and get their friends to approve this very quickly. Build, and then they're going to own the database of tenants.
Exactly.
And then they're going to manage these tenants. And then they're going to say, it's yours. Number one, are you going to be able to access the quality of tenants they have? Be able to do the verifications and the credits and the things they do, manage them. You're going to beg them.
Yes.
Please carry on.
Carry on.
Please carry on.
And you know, when I speak to this guy, he says, in that business model, what makes most of the money is the app, the rent collection app. Because every time somebody pays the rent via their app, there's a certain percentage of the payment that they charge. And that thing is continuously. That thing is continuously. And look, I don't want to collect rent. If the rent comes to me via app and I get the message that so-and-so is paid, and this thing does all the magic, at the end of the month it says 90% of your rentals are in.
You're happy.
I'm happy.
They've taken away stress.
But those are the things, that's our industry. Amaroom used to be our industry. They've even taken the arch of it.
I'm thinking spaza shops. So I'll say this. Number one, shout out to Isantako.
Yes.
Shout out to them for the wrong reasons, though. Santako is, I think, the biggest association, taxi association in the country. I don't know if they've got intelligent people there, but I've always had a wish, because some of Labo Baba, Nomkul, I've always wished, can they have intelligent children? To what you were saying, send them out to go and study international transportation so they can come back and create the apps and manufacture our own taxis and then monopolize or franchise service stations, fuel garages, etc., and run the value chain, which has been sad for me because I don't think that's really happened. Okay, shout out to the Jews, SA Taxi, that have done it. But Isantako has been able to, when government brought Aboria via the bus service, to protest and say, if you don't give us a piece, we're not going to let this thing run. And I'd like to think Isantako owns a chunk of these bus service stations government has done. SA Taxi, same. I saw the deal recently. Shuti, they went and they said, look, we can see that you guys run our industry. We'd like a stake. And they've gotten a stake now of SA Taxi, and they've put some of their people on the board, which I think is pretty dope.
That's good.
The second thing I want to say is I've always fantasized about the idea of if Black Africans own the taxi industry in some way, can this not be replicated in spaza shops? So we can speak good and bad. We can speak the good, which is, can you guys not create a spaza association? And then, njengoba uba ne route, kwazi ukuthi kule neighborhood njenge route, owner uba Madon, uba Mlotshwa, etc. Iphaza umambani. Here, if you're not part of the association, awukwazi uvula isiphaza la. Ubani othe uzovula la ngoba uzodlela abantu be association. And then use economies of scale. To what you were saying, we fundraise, all of us fund the association, khona izohamba iyothenga isigrosele on our behalf, and then buy into the value chain, which if you're sleeping, the SA taxis, the SA's Spaza will come.
They'll come.
And then do that.
Yes.
Then on the negative part, which has worked, bring in the violence. If you're not part of this association, you can't come and open his Spaza.
Yeah.
And in that way, abantu abamnyama could reclaim spaza shops. I've always had that wish. Jobusu khuluma manje about construction, and now one of the questions I wanted to ask, because you're a construction mogul, because you're a construction entrepreneur who not only develops property, but you also have your own that you rent out. Is there a construction mafia? And you've already now answered this one of, are there similar external people infiltrating a construction at a level, back room? But is there a mafia?
Yeah, there is. There is. Look, I think the biggest mafia is the guys who've been there before us, the big companies. Those are construction companies. Yeah, those are the biggest mafias because number one, they set the rules. I'll give you one example. This thing is CITB. It's
what, do you know what CITB stands for?
Yeah, it's construction development what board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Construction Industry Development Board.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's something like that. For me,
but what is it?
For me to get a certain level of tender, I need to be registered at the CITB. So they'll vet my company, they'll do all those things. It's a gatekeeping thing. Because for me to get to level 6, so that we can build a bridge, you can't build a bridge for government if you're not in level 6.
Okay.
For you to be in level 6, you need to have done so much. And you can't do so much because you don't get the job.
Of course.
So those guys, they sat down, they said, okay, instead of using the guns, we are going to use the law.
Yes, and infiltrate or create regulations.
And create regulations. You see, people think that law is just. No. Apartheid was law. It was not just.
Yes.
Selling and buying people was law then. It was not just.
Fact.
So once you make something law, it does not mean that thing is just.
Yes.
So the biggest mafias are those guys. So now here are the new mafias that have come in. I know eThekwini bakhona bababiza ngamagama, I'm not going to mention names. But bakhona, what they do, more nama room like me, unama room, they come and say, for a protection fee, four apartments are now renting to us. The other 6 are yours if you've got 10.
That's hardcore mafia. That's exactly how the mafia works.
That thing is happening. Didn't you hear the bishop when he was speaking in coronation ga Misuzulu, the Gazweltin?
The Anglican bishop.
Yeah, he mentioned. Yes, he mentioned all those things to the president. That president, there's this mafia thing that's happening. They started in the taxi industry. Those guys, they came, but no, they did the same thing. Mamelodi.
What was Mashwabane doing in Mamelodi?
Mashwabane collect a protection fee from every business in Mamelodi, from every taxi, every spaza shop, everything else. Those guys, he had an army of guys who will terrorize in the community.
I want to ask a funny question.
Yeah.
Njobu Kuluma, because Njobu Kuluma Mashwabane.
Mashwabane, yeah, that's what they call him. Mashwabane is there on the news.
It seems like he was collecting tax.
Yeah, he was collecting tax.
To protect and serve the industry, the economy of Mamelodi. And I'm just thinking, but is that not what governments do?
That's what governments do. But
is e-tax not a form of extortion?
It is. It's just that the government one is legal.
And you said legal is not just.
Legal is not just. So we've seen that it's not just because we resisted to Mashwabane. Yeah. It took Upegitele to have a special unit to go and deal with this guy, Mamelodi. This is where the other thing, Yaga John Wick. John Wick.
I remember there was a joke and videos.
No, it was not a joke in John Wick.
John Wick Epitori.
John Wick Epitori, it was not a joke.
What was that story?
The story was like all these guys who used to be part of Lentoka Mashwabane.
Yes.
They were found dead. So I don't know what happened, whether he was sponsored by the state, I don't know, but the fact is, all of them.
John Wick. John
Wick, 1. John Wick dealt with that thing. That thing is dead now.
Hectic.
You know? So, was it right? Maybe it was. Sometimes you have to be mad to get things right.
As going back to what you said earlier, I'm thinking of Lento Guti, our dark forces within ourselves are always stronger than the good. Yeah. And you have to fight them.
You have to.
Taxi industry, tenders, politics, construction. It seems like criminal elements always infiltrate every good thing. And the question becomes, so from an individual perspective, you fight to know, let me be more honest. Let me do good work. Yeah. Let me wake up early. Let me service the clients as best as... That's you fighting yourself.
Yes.
I could crook this person, but I choose not to.
I choose not to, yeah.
How do we do it on a greater scale where we ensure that criminal elements are not infiltrating? It seems that they've infiltrated everywhere, and it's not a black thing. It's not a white thing. It seems everyone.
Look.
How do good people fight back?
System works in majority.
Okay.
Once the system is majority corrupt, there's nothing that is going to happen. The host is so deep inside that it must, the virus is so deep in that it must just kill the host. I tell you, the system works in a majority. Once the majority is good, the system will self-correct. The system just works in numbers.
How do you fix that?
You try and...
Because Njobu ubala one, Mashwabane. Ubala one person here, ubala a Verwoerd.
But
it's almost one person, but he convinces...
Here's the problem with the guys who are willing to do the extreme. Yeah. They have nothing to lose. You see, the bad guys are willing to kill.
They are willing to kill.
I'm willing to die for my family, but I'm not sure if I'm willing to kill.
For your family.
You see, people are willing to die for the country.
Yes.
It's another thing to willing to die. It's another thing to willing to kill.
One of the cool things about the looting, for me personally, that I learned, I was reminded of the importance of protecting what you value.
Yes.
And it seems a lot of Black Africans don't know how to protect what they value, and they don't even have a plan.
Not there.
And we saw it with the Indian communities in Durban. We saw it with so many white communities around the country. They were saying, we have weapons. You may not have known, and it wasn't for us to advertise, but we are willing to defend our families and the things that we value. And it's meant to be a very good lesson, because we'd like to think a lot of these people were good people. They weren't bad people. They weren't going around killing people. But they were good people that had acquired the ability to do bad things to bad people. You know, and I watched the latest Batman. It's called The Batman. And I was fascinated because what they've done, they've made so many Batman movies. And I think the best ones are a trilogy by a director called Christopher Nolan, one of my favorite directors. The Dark Knight Rises, Batman Begins. In this, The Batman, they went back to the comics, number one, and they also went back to the concept of a superhero.
Yeah.
The Batman in Gotham City inherited or came into a space, Bruce Wayne, where the criminals had taken over Gotham City.
Yes.
And he realized, number one, he couldn't face them as Bruce Wayne, who's a billionaire, etc. He needed to have this alter ego to move like John Wick. But secondly, and this is the most important part, that they brought into this movie. Batman needed to be scarier than the bad guys.
Exactly.
It's not enough for bad guys to be like, hey, khona umuntu obulala igebengu. Lo muntu obulala igebengu must be so scary that once efika igebengu like, hey baba, kwafika lo muntu sinyile. So you need a good person that has such a dark element that bad people are scared of this good person when he changes. He doesn't kill you. Our president is going to kill. He's going to torture and absolutely shred you to pieces so that anyone who thinks of doing bad is petrified. How do we get now? Violence is bad. No, you must, guns kill people. And you're like, Baba, bad people are not scared to hurt you. So how do we get good people to contain their dark sides, but to also develop like a dark side that is so dark that the day you open it,
look, growing up in the township, what you're saying I've witnessed. I did not watch it in the movie.
Yeah.
I've witnessed it.
By the way, I've seen a necklacing live. I don't speak about these stories during apartheid growing up.
Yeah. No, I've seen. Look, there were times where criminals took over the township.
Yes.
Every day somebody will be stabbed and they'll be dead. They'll be robbed. The community had to stand up. And because community knows they will go to their house and they will really do bad things. That's the only time.
Have you seen Mob Justice?
Yes.
Koni video pume last year or the year before.
Lalela.
Did you see that one?
Yes. I tell you.
I watched that video with fascination.
That's the only language anyone who's doing badly understands. I tell you one thing. I don't know who told us that having a weapon is bad. My dad had tisagila. Cameroon. Anyone who knocks uzohamba uvula phethe isagila. Indoda yomZulu mayihamba ihambile ngesizandla.
Yes.
Where have you seen a Zulu man walking on the field just nje? Uyena. The systems have advanced. One of the things that makes KZN not to be taken for granted by almost most of the people, including the politicians, is that every other second person in KZN is armed.
Zulu people love guns.
I tell you,
and other weapons, actually.
And other weapons.
Yes.
I mean, this person is a good person. This person is a pastor.
Yes.
But he understands, Uguti, there are instances in your life that you mustn't let other things happen, because once you allow those things to happen, you'll never be the same.
Military training.
So we really, this thing, one of the things that made the Afrikaner nation to remain in power, even though we had numbers and we could do a lot of things, that they understood that unless we train all our boys, and make sure that they are willing to kill, then we are not going to survive.
One of the first things that was shut down when a democratic country came into power was shutting down forced military training.
That thing should be back. There's something that it does.
Your political leaders currently, along with the business people that fund them, they know what happens when you capacitate good people to be able to fight back. I remember Rob Hersoff that I get dragged for every now and then. When he gave his very famous speech at a business conference, one of the things he spoke about was gun laws and how he loves them.
Yeah.
And he says, having lived in America at some point, when they speak about, I don't know which amendment, Second Amendment or whatever, right to hold arms. He says one of the reasons you hold arms is to protect yourself against the tyranny of the state.
Yes.
So to not be bullied
by the state,
by the government. We saw this under lockdown where there were people and they stopped counting the numbers. It's when I was tracking Babel 9 and then they stopped reporting the number of people that were killed by soldiers and the police for being in their yards drinking, for being in the streets. And it's easy for police to weak.
When somebody says that we've got a gun,
the conversation
changes. The conversation changes. I say to people who say, no, we must not have guns. I said to them, no, you should have a gun and not use it.
Yes.
Rather than need to use a gun and don't have it.
Don't have it.
That's a very, very bad space to be in. When you need to use a gun and you don't have it, I would rather have guns and not use them. I'm good.
Your view on fatherhood, parenting, Njobas Kulum, about developing young kids into the leaders of tomorrow. The fact that, especially I know I'm a Poon because I grew up very Afrikaans. Rugby is a form of training, physical training. Going camping, there are 4 trekkers, for example, and then going to the shooting range. They go fishing, etc. What are your views on fatherhood in general? And then how are you planning to raise your kids to be more functional or better functional people in society?
Look, fortunately, I got raised by a very strong dad. My dad was very strong.
It seems your mom was strong because
yes, because
we are accountant.
Look, my dad will allow my mom to do things that supports my dad's vision.
Beautiful.
In the background. You know, when I look at this thing, now I'm a father, I've got a wife, and then I could see, oh, okay, if I do this thing with my mom, my dad will allow me. You know, one of the things that my dad never allowed me to do was to cook. I never cooked. I never washed dishes. No, my dad would not allow me to do that. He said to me, look, it's the two of us, it's me and you, we are men in this house. We must go to the garden.
Yes.
If the gate is falling, me and you must be my tool boy. You must come here and we'll paint, we'll do this. We'll go next door, fix their water, we'll charge them. I was always next to my dad, carrying his tools and learning all the tools of the trade from a very, very early age.
Apprenticeship.
We'll come home, sizodla, mom will cook and we'll come and we eat and then we'll go out and we'll work. I'll give you an example. When my dad built his first outside rooms at Tembisa, he would not buy material if ipele nge weekend. If he river sand ipele nge weekend, he comes nge vena some and we go to the river, we go and get the river sand, the two of us. When it's time to plaster, we go to the river, we get the plaster sand, he brings the sieve, I sieve the sand, the guys plaster during the week. So
you are understanding construction from basics,
you know. So here's what I feel, and I think, you know, when I grew up at Tembisa, my dad was one of those, I think out of 20 houses, there were 3 strong dads in the whole line. If your mom comes to my house to call my dad on you, you know that you're in trouble.
Oh, shit. Enforcer, disciplinarian.
My dad was a disciplinarian for the street, not only for us. So here's what I've learned. I can't be a father to my kids only.
Yeah.
I'm a father to all the kids. If I see some kid that I don't know doing something wrong, I stop and I speak to them and say, guys, let's reason. What are you doing? Why are you smoking? Why are you not playing soccer? Why are you not at rugby? Why not cricket? Why are you not doing the TikTok thing and make money? Why are you not on YouTube? You've got all these things, all of the things that you can choose. You choose to smoke.
And it becomes your responsibility to buy them the soccer ball.
You know, and it becomes my responsibility to say, okay, now we want to do this thing. Then I go and then I support. Because I believe that as parents, if we take our position, because really, who are the kids going to mimic if they're not going to mimic us?
Yes.
As a human being, you learn language by mimicking. You listen to this person say this thing, you say it badly up until you are able to say it nicely.
Yes.
So with kids and being a father, I believe that fathers, number one, need to be strong.
Strong physically.
No, you have to be strong physically and you have to be strong even by character.
Okay.
As a man. When somebody sees you, they must think twice. I don't understand this thing of weak men. Hence, I have this problem with crime because now we have to drive our kids to school. Our kids don't walk anymore.
Yes.
They're not exposed to the sun.
Which also weakens them.
Which also weakens them because now you must pick them and drop them. They must walk. Walking makes you strong. I'll tell you a thing that I observed. My son was playing soccer for Highlands Park. You know, he plays with the white boys from the suburbs. They had a practice match against the guys from Alex. You know, structurally, the guys from suburbs are big and I told, you can see the growth that is not...
Yeah, in nutrition.
In nutrition is not.
It lacks a malnutrition.
But one thing I can tell you, the first half, it was almost 50-50. But the second half, the guys from Alex took over and they scored 12 goals. And when I looked at this thing, I then started seeing with Norman, our kids, they train 2 hours, Monday, Tuesdays and Thursdays, Saturday they play.
Yes.
These guys, they train every day because they walk to school, they play on the road, they do all those things. They had to adjust to the new environment of playing on the grass field, and our guys had stamina, they could. But the second half, this is where you see things that are in the background, how you grow up, the exposure and all those things. So hence I understand why then people will get you a bicycle instead of driving you to school, because it's part and parcel of training. It makes you stronger as a person, and it makes you stronger as a man, because a man must be strong. I don't like weak men.
I want to say this. Yazi, I'm a curious person by nature, and I'm constantly studying by listening, watching, etc. Unokuthola umuntu that's well built, and people ask them, let's say like our West African brothers and sisters, why are you built like this? It's natural. And one of the things some of us have discovered is that what you call natural is, number one, diet.
Yes.
What are you eating?
What are you eating?
What are you eating?
Sesidla
sushi, ingane zethu zidla ama noodles. And then we wonder, abantu bayibiza ingane zama cornflakes. And then we wonder why our kids zingaqinanga. So diet is big. If you look at the plantain and the fufu and the things they eat there, it's food that builds you physically strong.
Exactly.
The second part now is the one you're speaking about, where why are you so strong when you don't go to gym? It's because my lifestyle.
Your lifestyle.
To come to school.
Yes. Exactly.
Or mambetu, for example, because for some guys they think they get their strength from their fathers. Some of our strength come from our moms, because babethezi inkuni, babebamba amabhodwe esiZulu,
balanda
manzi, mabe bondu ipa uputhu, or mabe vubu utshwala, for example.
Exactly.
All of those things, lapho uthethe ingane.
Exactly.
And then you're like, no, I'm strong because of my dad. It might be your mom. And you don't realize, and your mom doesn't realize, she's been gymming her whole life. If ever market bamba ngo vice grip, no make shang impama, understand why she's so strong.
I tell you, mama begat makakbamba ngevaslap. You know? Then, because our mom was strong. Look, this thing, I tell you one thing that I've been listening to some podcasts from the US. This guy says something that really caught my attention. He says, you know, these people who are overfed on grains. Grains make short people. And I said, you know, there were times when I grew up, South Africans who were not short. And I started checking that, no man, now that we've changed what we're eating, all of a sudden we are now short. And I'm like, you know, they really put science behind this thing.
Yeah.
Because why are white people bigger than black people physically?
Because they are.
Because they are.
Who are Springboks?
I mean, they are. You know, when you stand in front of a white person in Ibangi parking, you must have this internal warrior inside of you that says,
Sure.
But honestly, this guy is overshadowing you.
Yeah.
Sekusala lokuthi okay makangihlula ngezandla ngizombamba ngamatshe yabona, because you don't want to give in, but structurally you defeated already because lomuntu mkhulu. And
that's what happens to Bafana when they play other African countries, because we'll always speak about nutrition. South African guys have got better fields, arguably better nutrition, arguably
everything,
but then they go and they play poor African countries where they don't have nice stadiums like us, or Orlando, no Soccer City, and then bashawa ngeingudlu.
Exactly. I tell you. So here's something we really need to go back and work on the soil. That's what I've said. You know, in the beginning, you have to go back to the beginning. Unfortunately, once you mess up, it's like a child. Once you miss the critical developmental time, you know, I think it's
7 years.
I think the first 7 years.
Yeah.
Once you've missed it, you've missed it. There's not much you can do. So you have to go. It's the same thing. I think
it's easier to raise strong kids than to repair broken men.
Exactly. That's the thing. You know, when you read, you know, now I read the Bible with a different understanding.
Amen, Mfundis.
I read the Bible with this inquiring mind. I wonder and I inquire, when these people were moving from, according to the story, there's a story there that says the Israelites moved from Egypt to Canaan, the land of milk and honey. The generation that came out of Egypt did not reach the promised land. It then told me that sometimes a generation has to leave for a new generation to come up and do new things, because if you keep the old generation, you are not going to reach the promised land. The reason they were going around the mountains and not going straight to the promised land is that God was trying to kill the old generation so that the new generation can go there. Because sometimes, like the Chinese, when they took over, the Communist Party in China, they killed all the capitalists, executed them.
So we were watching Avengers Endgame, a Marvel movie. And the bad guy there with Thanos.
Yeah.
So there's two movies. It's Endgame, and before that it's Infinity War. In Infinity War, he comes up with this vision that there are limited resources in the world. So if I kill off half of the people, the half that's left get to have more. If we had 1 hectare to share, now it's yours to have. In Endgame, he comes back because they come and they want to fight him. And he says, I realized part of the issue with my vision was the fact that some of you from the old system still existed.
Yes.
To be able to tell new people, and it's literally that type of mindset. If we're removing the capitalists, they won't infect the new generation. With this vision we're trying to raise them on.
This new vision you're trying to build, nobody's going to say Egypt was better than where we are.
Because they don't know.
Because they don't know. All that they know is what they have, and they're going to make do with what they have. Here's the story that Jesus says that I really found fascinating. This guy says, no, I want to join you, but I want to go and say goodbye to my parents. And then he says, no, let the dead deal with the dead.
Yeah.
What he means, Guti, if you really want to achieve anything, you've got to make do with what you have. You've got to give up. You can't be looking backwards and going forward backwards. One guy said to me, my wife always reprimands me. And then she says to me, this guy did not pay me, so this guy is supposed to pay me. My wife says to me, I know you are going to uzoyingala leo mali. I don't know yini ukungala nge-English.
Uzoyituba?
Yeah, uzoyituba. Yini ukutuba nge-English? You're going to give up that man. I said, okay, I am going to give up.
What's ukutuba nge-English?
Yini ukutuba nge-English? Whatever. Bazo Google it, whoever wants to know. So what?
Sorry, but it's
yeah.
Jeez, and my English is pretty good.
Anyways, the reason I do these things that people don't want to pay me, they owe me, they must pay me. But the reason I do them is because if I keep looking back at what I'm owed, I lose focus at what I need to do in front of me. So usually, and it works. Every time I psychologically psych myself to say, you know what, write that thing off, cut it, and focus on making new money.
Sure.
I really focus and I really make new money. You know, I write that thing off, and so here's the principle in that is that you can't look back and go forward.
Let go of dead weight.
Let go of dead weight.
Kill the horse. Have you heard that horse story?
Yes. Kill the horse.
Stop flogging a dead horse. The horse is dead.
It's dead.
I think there's a list. It's like 50 ways to, I forget this thing, but something like 50 ways to try and revive a dead horse. And then the last one is the horse is dead. Leave it alone.
Kill the horse. Because once you kill the horse, then you are accepting your reality, number one, to say, now I need to have a new strategy to get to my destination. I can't carry this so much weight. So you start ridding yourself of weight and all the things that are not necessary. You take only what you really need because you are now going to walk. There's no horse that's going to carry this weight. So this is what happens. It's like in the forest. You know, when the forest is let alone, unattended, the dead wood becomes so much. The day a lightning hits that dead wood and it burns, it's going to also burn the topsoil. So you must not let dead wood to pile up too much, so that when that day it burns, it's not only going to kill itself as dead wood, it's also going to kill the topsoil. That's how deserts get started. So from time to time, you must get rid of heavy weights. Just burn the dead wood as while it's still manageable without having the capability of burning your topsoil.
Your thoughts on raising girl children?
I love girls. Girls change.
I love girls.
Girls change you as a father.
Umatondo said, I love girls.
My dad had 2 wives, so at least I can justify.
When awukho kwisithembu?
No, angikho esithenjini. No, angikho esithenjini. Look, for now, the reasoning is changing is because number one, Magangena, I did not tell her, ukuthi ungahlulanywe. For me, I always...
So you'd be breaking...
because imagine 20 years later, mid-air, I'm introducing this Mtanabantu to this
unfair
person. For me, it's like
her saying that.
It's like her saying that to me, you know. So, but my dad had 2 wives. So, look, I'm growing up with sisters and I've got a girl child. I think there's something that happens to a man when they raise a girl. Number one, you become sensitive. Number two, you actually now are aware of the injustices that are happening in the world against women and against girl children, you know. So you try your level best to make sure that you shield your child. But in doing that, I also don't want my child or my girl child, number one, to be soft. Ne? And I don't want her to be too hard. She must still remain feminine.
Okay.
Because that's what makes a woman a woman. A woman is not a man. You know, the only thing I have against this feminist movement is that they want to have women behave like men.
Instead of just focusing on equality.
You must not be paid based on gender.
Sure,
you know?
I agree.
But the reason you are a woman is because you must be a woman. So let's say you are a boss and you're a woman, you don't have to behave like men.
I agree with that.
Yes, you
and
must
we're not ready for that conversation.
You must be a woman.
What does a female boss look like?
A female boss, when I go to the office, and because she's got this intuition, the sixth sense that God has blessed women with, and she can see that something is not right, she has the right to call me and put aside her boss head and say, all right. You know, and I say, no, tissue lapan. No mankala, anghake, angsule. You know, when you are a woman boss, you are also allowed to be a mother at work.
100%. We don't have female bosses that are mothers. And if you look at The Devil Wears Prada, Meryl Streep, and you look at, I think for colored girls, Janet Jackson, Tyler Perry movie, they keep pushing this thing of the strong woman corporate.
No.
Why can't you be a mother? Because we love and respect and we listen to our mothers and they also discipline us.
And they also discipline. Actually, our mothers discipline us more than our fathers. True. In my house, my wife disciplines more than I do.
True.
At home, my mother disciplined me more than my dad did. When they call my dad, I know that I've really messed up. But my mother was the disciplinarian. At work, I don't know why women want to change. I really don't know. So here's my take. Women must be women. And I want to feel that warmth when I go to work and my boss is a woman. It must not be like a man because she's not a man.
Yes. I'm thinking if we get it right to bring back real